Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road as we begin a three-part series on an amazing roller coaster ride and story of restoration with Beth Hombach. You know, David wrote in Psalm 34:18, God is close to the brokenhearted, and He saves those who are crushed in spirit. Through this three-part series, you're going to see how all the while, through all the suffering, God was close and God saved. Beth, thank you so much for being with us. You have an amazing story of restoration. You're operations manager at Redemption House, is that right?
Correct.
But we got to talk about how you got there. This is just incredible. Can you just talk about growing up and how that influenced your choices later as a teen?
My life started relatively well. I had a mom and a dad who loved me, so that was great. I had two sisters. My parents divorced when I was 6, and it was kind of a nasty divorce, but I ended up living with my father, while my other two sisters eventually ended up living with my mother. So my father and I moved to Indianapolis, so it was just kind of me and him as I was growing up. I saw my sisters and my mother every other weekend. And we went to church at my mom's every other weekend. Oh. So I knew about God, but not a whole lot. Basically, what I got from it was be a nice person, and if you sit still, you get donuts after the service. So that was great.
So you knew about him, but didn't really know him personally.
That's correct. Okay. My dad kind of switched religions depending on who he was dating. He eventually married a Jewish lady and converted to Judaism, but that was down the road. So it was me and my dad. He was in law school. And so as I was growing up, he worked all day, and then he would come home for a moment and go to law school in the evening. So I was left to my own devices, pretty much.
You were alone a lot in the apartment complex, I think.
Yes, I was alone a lot. I spent a lot of time alone.
So how old were you when you first experimented with cigarettes or alcohol or anything of the sort?
Well, I was 11. By the time I was 11, I was really tall and skinny and kind of gangly and just awkward, and I was always really shy. And like I said, I spent a lot of time alone, and then my dad was the one who did my clothes shopping, which was unfortunate because he had a man's point of view on clothes shopping. He did. So it was 3 boys' shirts, all different colors, same shirt, 3 boys' pairs of jeans, pair of tennis shoes, you're good to go. So I wasn't popular by any stretch, and I always kind of felt a lot like an outcast, and I just wanted to fit in somewhere. And so that's how I ended up smoking cigarettes, because all the kind of ruffians, the cool kids or whatever, or the bad kids in the apartment complex would go out in the woods and smoke cigarettes all day, and I thought, there's a place I could fit in. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. And when I was 11, I started smoking pot as well. We didn't get it very often. It was if somebody stole it from their parents or whatever the case may be, but that was a special day. So
you're beginning to feel a sense of community, so to speak, feeling like you're fitting in. And then you take a trip to Pennsylvania when you're about 11, is that right?
Yes, I did. I went to Pennsylvania when I was 11. I went to visit a friend of mine to stay, I don't know how long, a couple weeks, a month or something. And that is, I was 11 then too. The end of my 11th year. And that is where I learned about boys and sex. Because I didn't live with my mom, and my mom's a really private person about those kind of things, and my dad, I didn't really have any clue about anything concerning men and women whatsoever at all, but I learned that summer. My friend had a boyfriend who was older, and she was always talking about kissing him and gonna have sex with him, and I wasn't really sure what that was, but sounded pretty good. She was excited about it. So he had an older friend who was 19 at the time, and one night they snuck into the window of her house, into her room, and so that's the night I learned about sex.
And how'd you feel at that moment? Did you feel guilty? Did you feel exhilarated? What did you feel?
I didn't really know how to feel. I think a part of me felt like something really big just happened and I didn't really know how to process it. I mean, in my young mind, I just didn't really understand how to process that. But at the same time, I mean, the boy was nice to me, so that felt good. Like having a boy notice me felt really good to me and notice me in that way because I wasn't the cutest girl. I was really awkward. So that was good. And then, I don't know, I guess I just didn't know how to feel about that.
And I think you come home and your sister tells on you? Is that what happens?
No, I actually called my sister while I was in Pennsylvania. Now, my mom had been remarried, so I had two stepsisters who were really older than me. So she would have been 21. She's 10 years older. And I didn't know how to feel about it, but I felt like I should tell someone. So I called, and she's the sister that answered the phone. And so I told her my big secret, thinking that I don't know what I thought. Maybe I would get some great advice, or I don't know what I thought. I just told her, and she told my mom, and my mom called my dad, and they brought me home early, and it was this big uproar, and I just kind of felt lost in all the uproar of what was happening around me. But my mom called me crying and was very upset with me and said some things that weren't very nice. And I think that she was just in a place where she didn't know what to do at that moment. And my dad was just angry. And whether or not he was totally angry at me or at himself or at the boy, at this point, I don't know. But at that point in my life, what I perceived was that he was really angry with me. And my mom was angry with me. And I was grounded for I don't know how long, but it seemed like a really long time. But the boy kept calling me from Pennsylvania. So he was pretty much the only one who I felt like was nice to me in all of this.
Out of the whole equation, yeah.
In the whole equation. So I did that was a major turning point in my life because I learned that I couldn't really trust my family to tell things to. And I also learned that boys would be nice to you if you had sex with them. And so that really shaped the direction of my life.
And what were those next steps then as a teenager?
During my 7th and 8th grade years, then I continued sleeping with boys, smoking cigarettes, smoking pot, added drinking alcohol, and I started getting into a lot of fights at school, skipping school anytime I could, just basically a downhill slide, everything that went with it. I just kind of went wild. I don't know, maybe I felt unloved, maybe I felt like nobody saw me, but for whatever the reason, I've always liked to be the best at things. I guess since I was kind of labeled the bad kid anyway, I was gonna be the best at it, and I did quite a good job.
Did you start getting picked up by the police at night?
Yes, I got picked up quite a few times and brought back home at night. On the night that my dad, before he was supposed to take his bar exam, the police brought me home to him. So yeah, I got picked up quite a few times.
And is that just because you're out late on the street?
Yeah, it was for sneaking out. I was pretty much uncontrollable at that point, so I went out when I wanted to go out, and they would catch me and bring me back home. So.
And then when you're 15, you moved to Dublin, Ohio, is that right?
We moved to Dublin well before that. I think it was around about my 12th year.
Oh, wow.
We moved to Dublin, and after my dad passed the bar, and then he got a job at a law firm there, and he had been dating a lady for a long time in Indianapolis that was a lawyer as well. So they got married, and we got a little house in the suburbs. So Dublin is where I really started getting in trouble, all through 7th and 8th grade. And yeah, so Dublin's a really rich suburb of Columbus, and we had a nice little house, and I think my stepmom was picturing a nice little life, and I was definitely a kink in that plan at this point. I was just trouble.
And you get in trouble multiple times with the school?
Multiple times. I held records for in-school and out-of-school suspensions in 7th and 8th grade year. And I was never a mean-spirited child. I would smoke when I wanted to smoke. I would leave school to smoke pot, to get high. I would skip anytime I could. So just the classic things. And then I got in quite a few fights as well. But I never instigated them. I was always just,
ready to throw down if you needed to?
I was ready if I felt as if I had to.
So the administration finally has enough of it? And
I finished 7th and 8th grade there. When I started out as a freshman at Dublin High School. Then at that time, my stepmom became pregnant with their first child. And around that same time, I actually got expelled as a freshman for fighting from Dublin High School. And I think at that point, she was just like, I'm having this new baby, we have this new family, and I can't deal with this anymore. So
what was next?
they sent me to my mom's here in Fort Wayne. Yeah.
And how did that go?
It went great in a couple ways because my sisters were there and I loved my sisters. And so I didn't feel so lonely anymore. I didn't feel, but my stepdad, I had always felt that he didn't love me. I don't know why that is. He just had a different way of showing his love that I didn't understand. And he didn't really know me. I spent every other weekend there, and it's not like I was an easy child to talk to. So, yeah. And so when I got there, they were already, I was sent there because I was expelled and smoking pot and sneaking out with boys. So they were on the offensive right away to get me back in shape. And so because of that, they tried to clamp down on me right as soon as I walked in the door, and that did not work well
You
at
rebelled
all.
against that?
Absolutely. I didn't know any other way at that point.
Did you do anything more for your education?
I did. I went to summer school when my stepdad was a teacher at Heritage, and so I went to summer school at New Haven so that I could stay on track to finish high school, and then I went to Heritage sophomore year.
And then I think you meet a guy.
Oh, yeah, I did. Always a guy. But this one I hadn't really ever fallen in love before, so I met a guy now and fell in love. I met him at Southtown Mall. I thought he was so cool. That's what we did then, walked around the mall. Remember those days?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I thought he was really cute and handsome, and he had eyes for me, and he smoked a lot of pot, and that's what we did. We get dropped off at the mall and go walking around and then sneak out the back of the mall and go smoke pot or whatever. So we fell in love, and young love, thought we were going to be together forever, of course. But he was really jealous and had a really violent temper. And so from that experience, I really learned what I thought that love looked like, because his jealousy to me said, I care about you so much that you better not look or talk to another man, So I was 15 at that time, so to me that started to look like what love looked like, and that really set a pattern for the rest of my male relationships in my life.
You thought that if they're jealous, they really love me in a way,
Yeah,
right?
I did. I thought that violence and jealousy meant that they cared about me. It meant that he cared about me. And since I had had a lot of experience with boys, but not any experience with love. And that was really my first, everyone knows their first love. It feels like it's like this earth-shaking thing, and it kind of sets the idea for what love looks like, and that's exactly what happened with me.
And you're starting to get in trouble at Heritage as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even though, I couldn't skip anymore. My stepdad was a teacher, so he would know that I was skipping. So that didn't really work. But yeah, I was getting in trouble at school. I was sneaking out. I was smoking pot, and I hung out with my sisters all the time. They drank a lot of beer. Heritage is a country school, so there were a lot of beer parties and whatnot. But just the regular teenage trouble kind of ramped up a little bit. But since I was already on such a short leash as far as they were concerned, there was no leeway. Anything that I did was like, oh, we knew you were going to be trouble, even if it was, at least that's my perception, was even like a normal teenage thing that my sisters would do. If I would get caught doing that, it would be so much worse, because I'd already set that precedent that I was going to be the naughty one, and that's kind of how it played out.
Do you eventually get expelled from Heritage?
I did eventually get expelled from Heritage in my junior year for fighting and for missing too many days of school. At that point, I didn't even care that if my stepdad, they couldn't really make me at that point go to school. It was past that point. And so the plan of my stepdad and my mom was to send me to a girls' school. But my dad had a different plan. I think that he might have maybe felt a little maybe guilty or just sad that he hadn't been there, recognized that maybe some of the way that I had been alone so much when I was younger contributed to who I was, or maybe because he sent me away. But for whatever the reason was, he hired an attorney for me, the same one that got him custody of me. He's a really great attorney here in town. He's one of the best. And he helped me to get emancipated instead, so I didn't have to go to girls' school. So
At 17.
I was 17, yes.
So what happens next? You're an adult on your own.
Emancipation means I'm a grown-up,
Yeah.
and so I took that to heart. Not only did I think that I was a legal grown-up, but when you're 17, you feel like you're a grown-up anyway.
Yeah.
So now I had free reign to do what I wanted. So I crashed on couches for about a week here and there, and then I jumped on a Greyhound bus and I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you went to live with your sister?
One of my stepsisters had recently moved there with her fiance, and they said I could crash on their couch for a couple weeks. And so I caught a Greyhound and I went there. And
What'd you do for work?
I actually worked at Old Country Buffet. I got a job there about 2 days after I got there, but that lasted less than a week. I tried to enroll in high school, but it was the weirdest thing because I didn't have a parent signature. They wouldn't allow it, and I had my emancipation papers, but it didn't matter. They wouldn't, for whatever reason, if it's state to state, or they just didn't understand what that meant. So I wasn't allowed to enroll in high school, so I did not. And I instantly, when I got there, found you can tell the people that smoke pot in your apartment complex. So I instantly found some people to smoke pot with, and just pretty much started the same behaviors that I'd been doing back at home. And as you can imagine, that didn't go over well with my sister and her fiance in a short period of time that they had had enough of that.
So did you have to find a place of your own?
I did, but I had found another job at the Waffle House, so I worked third shift, and it was a really rough part of town, but there were a lot of drunks that eat waffles in the middle of the night, so I made really good money there. I mean, for me, it was the best money I ever made. And so I got a little cheap pay-by-the-week hotel, and I felt like I was a grown-up, and I'd walk to work and live at that hotel. I had a little icebox, and
Then I think a new guy enters the picture from work.
yes, a new guy. He sold pot to the cooks at night, and he was so gorgeous. Oh, he was beautiful. And I just instantly really liked him, and he liked me too. So this became my second love of my life. In my estimation at that time, this was my first grown-up love, right? Because I felt like I was a grown-up now, and it was a different kind of relationship than I'd had before. And so, yeah, pretty soon we got a cheap hotel together, and we were gonna live together and have babies and be happy forever was the plan. So.
But he introduced you to meth.
He did. He introduced me to meth. It turns out that he actually wasn't just a pot dealer, but that he was a meth addict as well. And he shot up meth, so that's a whole nother level. But he had been clean about 2 months, and then shortly after we were together, he relapsed. At the same time, he introduced me to meth. So.
Now, would you stay up for like days at a time on meth?
The longest I remember staying up would be 7 days. And I remember I was just seeing crazy things, hallucinating. It was like tripping on acid, which I'd done quite a bit of. It was really strange. But I learned really quickly that if you want to be a drug addict over a period of time, that you can't really do that. So I learned to stay up 2 days, sometimes 3, mostly only 2 days, and then I would eat a bunch of pills to come back down, and I would sleep and then get back up and get high again.
Wow. And so you would classify yourself probably within a year of doing that as an all-out junkie.
Absolutely.
Right.
It was probably even quicker than that. I loved the way that meth made me feel at first because I'm a sleepy person, and I always just feel like I need a nap all the time. Doesn't matter how much I've slept. And so it made me feel great, and I'm shy as well. I'm really shy, and it made me feel not shy. It made me feel able to talk to people, able to go to parties and not feel out of place or not feel worried about, interacting with people. So Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot at first. And that's the trick of drugs. You know, people wouldn't become drug addicts if they didn't feel great at first. There's always some kind of something inside you that you feel you're lacking or needing or would make you better that you're looking for, and that drug will give you that feeling for a period of time, and that's the trap. And so by the time that you realize that you're an addict, you don't know how to get back out of that, and that's where I found myself at a really young age. So I was still 17 at this time.
Rabbis used to say that sin starts like a fishing line and ends like a cart rope. Somebody else has said that sin is like a credit card, that it costs you more than you want to pay, keeps you longer than you want to stay. And so I assume at some point you just kind of run out of money and need to find another way to make an income.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Because, I mean, I thought my boyfriend was big man on campus as far as drugs went because I didn't have any experience with meth or anything, but it turns out that he was just like one of the little fishes, and so he was always trying to find enough money to get us enough drugs to get through the night, get through the next day, whatever the case may be. And so at one point we did end up without any money. We didn't really have, we robbed this truck that was full of all these little Debbie-like cakes and all these crackers. And I remember we ate those for like a week. And the first 2 days, they were so delicious. And after that, it was so horrible, but we were hungry. And so that was back in the days when you didn't have to pay for gas first. So we would always, in our little whatever hoopty car we borrowed, we'd get gas and drive away fast. And it was like that. So yeah, he introduced me to the strip bars as well. When I was still 17, he told me that this would be a really great way for us to make money and really easy. And so I remember practicing walking in high heels and thinking, okay, that sounds okay to me. Because I was only 17, I couldn't legally work, which means I couldn't legally work in a good club. But there were at that time plenty of clubs that would let a 17-year-old work. They just weren't the nice ones. And so he took me and dropped me off at one of the notoriously sleaziest clubs in Tulsa. So the first time that I was on stage, I remember I didn't even know how to feel, but I was really frightened. And then so when I went to take my top off, I cried and I ran off the stage and I ran to the back room. And the manager and the door guys there and everybody were really supportive, of course. So they were like, it's okay, honey, you can do it. You know, of course they were. And so eventually I powered through, and then I was a dancer. It was a whole different world. Kind of the club I was at, like I said, was a really dark place. It was there are cleaner strip bars, most definitely, and this was not one of them. So I saw a lot of things there that were just shocking to me. I thought I was a bad girl all these years. You know, everybody told me I was, but this was something different. It was all these things that I didn't even know happened, and I couldn't believe it. And but really soon I got used to that. My eyes kind of adjusted to that darkness really fast.
Man. So you've accelerated 100 miles an hour. Stripping's now your way of life. What's your relationship like with your boyfriend? Because it seems really unique that a boyfriend would want you to go make money stripping in front of other guys.
Right. It's a tip to anybody out there that's watching. If your boyfriend wants you to go strip, you should find a new boyfriend. But, you know, in his defense, he was so whacked out on drugs. He just wanted to get some drugs. And in his mindset, that was the way to take care of us. But at that point, our relationship was not going well anyway. Two meth addicts, not going to have a good relationship. It's just chaos. It's constant chaos. And there's betrayal, and there's always just trickery and lies and stealing, and the people around you are so filled with darkness. It's just a really dark existence, and there is no way to have a loving relationship in that. We were both so young, we didn't really know what love entailed. To us, love was a feeling inside that you have for someone, and then you have great sex and you go happily ever after into the world, and that's how it is. And as we know as adults, that's not what love is. Love is an action and concessions that you make for others. So,
Amen.
Yeah.
So you turn 18,
yes.
and that allows you to get into the better clubs?
Yes, that's correct. And I still wasn't, at that point, I still wasn't totally comfortable by any stretch. I mean, the not very good secret of it all is I'm a horrible dancer. I don't have any sense of rhythm whatsoever. But here's another secret. You don't have to be a good dancer. Not at all. Just walk around with sexy eyes. That's all you have to do. And so, I moved to a better club. We went our separate ways after, how many, I don't know, violent fights and things that we'd done that was horrible to one another. But I went to a better club. It was a nice club. As far as strip clubs go, it was really clean. The men couldn't touch you, the women were pretty, and the management was kind enough. So it was much better than the place that I started at, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Had I stayed in the horrible place, would I have stayed so long is a question I could ask. But in any event, I worked there for quite some time. It's a really great job if you're a really bad drug addict, because what kind of job can you keep when you're a meth addict? Stripper, as long as you're young enough, because they will put up with quite a bit.
So at 18, you're a meth addict, you're a dancer, a stripper,
yes.
And you're alone.
I'm alone. I had no contact with my family.
So you found a new community to get involved with.
Started hanging out with a lot of bikers that I'd always loved motorcycles anyway, but just through mutual acquaintances and through my love of partying, I loved to party. That was my comfort zone. When I would get some beers in me and, do some meth. At that point, I have to tell you that I kind of backed off from the whole total meth head. I kind of, how would I say, I evened it out with pills, with basically any other drugs I could get, with whiskey. I drink a lot of whiskey. And so I wasn't just living the crazy meth head life, but I was living just an overall party life. So I backed away from that. When I broke up with that first boyfriend, I didn't really have any good connections to have a steady supply of meth at that time. And so I lived my life for a couple years dancing, and any time I could get it, of course I would do meth, but I did a number of other drugs as well. And started hanging out with the bikers. The biker clubhouse is always a great place if you want to party. It's always open, and I fit in there. And one of the great things was women are not often supposed to talk at a lot of those places, and I was really shy anyway till I got a couple drinks in me.